Okay, I'm going to start at the beginning. I'm creating this video log privately for myself so I can keep track of all the crazy crap that's happening right now. A couple weeks ago, my mom does this thing called Shipt, and it's where she delivers groceries to people. And she had a client that she delivered to. Clients can only see their first name and last initial. But my mom delivered a bunch of cases of water to this woman that lived on a second-story building. Sorry, I had a hair in my mouth. And so she delivers to this woman late at night, and she keeps taking the cases of water up to her and everything. And the woman kept looking past my mom's shoulder kind of awkwardly, like doing one of these, like as if there was someone behind her. And my mom was like, "Oh, are you okay? Are you waiting for somebody? What's the deal here?" And my mom's like freaked out by the fact this lady keeps like looking behind my mom. And the woman goes, "No, I'm fine. I'm not waiting for somebody." And then she goes, "You were sick recently, weren't you?" Or something along those lines. And my mom goes, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Yeah, you had cancer, right?" And she goes, "Do I know you? Do you know somebody I know?" And she's like, "No, but don't freak out. I'm a medium, and there's two women standing behind you." So my mom's like, "What the hell is, like, what? Why is there people standing behind me? Like, are you kidding me right now? Is this legit?" And the woman goes, "There's a shorter woman with gray hair, a loud mouth, likes to swear, kind of a potty mouth, older woman." My mom goes, "That would be my grandma Sadie, probably, because she's the only one that fits that description pertaining to me." And she goes, "Okay." And she goes, "The other woman looks like she's a little bit younger than this woman, maybe around the same age, taller, curly brown hair, thick glasses, basically a smart aleck, not as much swearing though as the other one." And my mom goes, "That would be my mother-in-law." So the woman's like, "Okay, well, they want you to know that they were with your granddaughter when she passed." And obviously I had a stillborn almost 8 years ago now. And that was pretty amazing for me to hear. And then she goes, "Who's Mario?" And that's actually my brother's name. Now, as you can probably guess, Mario's not like Jim or John or James or Doug or anything like that. It's very common, or not a common name like the other ones. It's not something you just pull out of a hat like that and be correct. And my mom goes, "That's my son." And she says that my mother-in-law has a message for my brother, which I won't go into because that's really nobody's business. But the fact that she pulled that name out of there was pretty crazy. So fast forward to this past Monday that just passed. My mom had made an appointment with this lady. Still didn't know her last name as far as I knew, so she couldn't look anything up or any history or anything like that. And when I made my appointment, she didn't even ask for my name. So that's pretty interesting considering, you know, she would need somebody's info to look anything up, right? But she didn't. But anyways, my mom called me after the 2-hour appointment with my mother and my father with this medium lady, and she goes, "Russell was brought up." I go, "Okay." And she said, "The lady said, 'Who's Russ or Russell?'" And my mom and dad go, "Well, that's my grandson, and that's his middle name. We call him Russell because nobody knows his first name and can figure it out." So they were talking, and she goes, the medium goes, "He's been having trouble sleeping, hasn't he?" And my mom wasn't completely sure, and he's kind of having been trouble sleeping off and on his entire life. We had a good time for a short part of time after we moved here, and then right around October, he started having trouble sleeping again. And we thought it was sleep apnea, and it turns out that's probably not as much the case. So the woman goes, he has been having trouble sleeping, and he's been complaining about his dreams and his nightmares, and it's because he has the gift, like me, as in the medium. And most kids are born with it, I guess, but apparently this medium seems to think that he's not going to lose his, that it's going to stay with him all of his life, and that he will probably be a medium as an adult. So at this moment, a bunch of light bulb moments came to light for me. as far as his behaviors and how he acts and some of the things he said over the last almost 4 years of his life. And it all kind of began to click. And the first thing I noticed was he has been having trouble sleeping lately. Especially, he refuses to go to bed by himself. He refuses to sleep in his room. He refuses to sleep with the light off. He refuses to go to the bathroom with the lights off, which is right next to his room. We have to turn the light on, or we have to let him go in our bathroom, which I haven't figured that out yet. But he's been drawing crosses all over my house. Like, he has etched them into the couch with his fingernail. He has drawn them all over chairs. I mean, he drew one, I don't know if you can see this, but he drew one on my chair, on my computer desk chair. He drew them on my kitchen table chairs. They're all over his door, all over my daughter's door, which is his sister's door, all over her walls, all over his walls, just everywhere. We lost count at like 45 that we erased, spent 3 hours erasing. And I asked him why he was drawing what I thought were just X's. And he goes, it's to keep the monsters away. And then after this whole medium thing happened, I realized they're not X's. When you look at them, they're actually crosses. And we are not religious people. We don't talk about Jesus. We don't talk about crosses. He doesn't talk about it at school. You know, he's in preschool. They don't talk about that kind of stuff. Not really anyone in our family that we see, that he sees on a regular basis, is religious or talks about those things. So we don't watch that stuff around him either, in terms of like scary movies and things. So we're like, where the hell is he learning about crosses keeping monsters away? So that was a light bulb moment. And then he's been talking about his dreams where he keeps telling me that the house is going to catch fire. He had a dream that my mom fell down and hit her head and there was blood all over the place. Very vivid dreams and things like for a 4-year-old, almost a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old to talk about. And it's very, very scary. But here's where it gets weirder. So our neighbor, my husband and I, we work every single weekend at the bar, and I sing and he bounces, and we're there late from 8:30 till 2 in the morning. And my neighbor watches the kids for us on the weekend. And a lot of Fridays, he'll stay the night there. Well, this past Friday, my neighbor pulled me to the side after telling her about what the medium had said, and she goes, I have chills. You've got to be kidding me. This is crazy. I go, what's wrong? What do you mean? And she goes, well, Friday night, I woke up because Russell sat out of a dead sleep, sat straight up in bed and goes, Trish, there's a man in your room. So she's like, nope, there isn't. You're seeing things, buddy. There's nothing there. And he goes, no, there's a man in by your bedroom door and he's staring right at us. Okay. So then she tells me that she got up, turned the light on, turned the light off, and when she did, the door slammed shut by itself. So that kind of freaked her out. She didn't really think anything of it until I mentioned something. So then she shows me a picture of the kid's dad, who she feels is always around because her two 13-year-old twins, their dad died when they were 3. A girl and a boy. And she shows me a picture of him just in case Russell happens to mention him or anything. And Russell wanted to see, and he's like, yeah, that's the guy that was in your room the other night, and he comes to my house too now. So then she shows me a picture of her son when he was 3, and it's like almost identical to Russell at 3. There's a few differences, but they look very, very similar. If I didn't know that that wasn't Russell, I would think it was Russell. So now we think that my neighbor's kid's dad is basically following around Russell because he thinks it's her daughter or her son, Joey. He thinks Russell is Joey because that's what he looked like the last time he saw him. So fast forward to the next night after finding all this out. AJ and I are in a dead sleep. We went to sleep at 1. And AJ's a very, 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 very heavy sleeper. I'm a light sleeper, but he's a very heavy sleeper. He sleeps like a freaking train wreck. And he doesn't wake himself up. Like, I have to push him and shake him to wake him up to tell him to roll over. So he's a very heavy sleeper. And him and I were awoken at early in the morning by something banging on our door. And this is not the first time it's happened. It's actually the third. This last week was a full moon, as most of you guys know, and it was an eclipse where we live, and we were woken by this sound. It was so loud, it was shaking my bedroom windows, and it was like boom, 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 and then it would stop, and then it did again. 2 more times after that, so 3 sequences of 3. And I looked at AJ at the last one and I go, what time is it? And he goes, it's 3:03 in the morning. So there's a couple of different ways to look at it that I've read. One of them is that Christ supposedly was crucified at 3 in the afternoon. I don't know if that's true, but apparently 3 a.m. is the evil spirit's way of mocking the Holy Trinity and the opposite of when Christ died. So there's that. And then there's also the idea that death is knocking. Great. We've had a lot of death in my friend's family and in my family lately, so I'm not sure how to take that, but I can tell you it's not a good thing. The last time this happened was around Halloween during a full moon as well. And I thought it was just kids playing a prank. The bad thing is that the first time it happened, I sent my husband out to see if there were kids out there, so he did open the door. So now I'm worried that he could have opened something and allowed it to enter my house, and that's around the time that Russell ended up not being able to sleep. So now Russell's seeing things in my house and elsewhere, and things are banging on my door. I woke up last Sunday with a giant ass. It's healing now, but it was a lot worse. This is on my inner calf, and it was this big, and it was just black and blue. I would have remembered if I had hit my leg in that particular spot on something that would have caused it to be that black and blue. There's not anything that I remember doing that would have caused that to happen, and I literally woke up with it not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. Then I spoke with one of my friends who is a witch, and she's very, very in tune with the spirit world, and as I was telling her about this stuff, she kept saying that she pictured a cemetery. And she's like, do you live near any cemetery? She didn't know exactly where we lived. She just knew we lived in Wayne County somewhere. And I go, no shit, because I forgot that they're at like 300 feet away from the entrance to our mobile home park is an old ass like 1832 age cemetery from the pioneers in Canton. And it's literally like 300 feet from the entrance to my park. Then I was talking about this whole situation with one of my friends last night at the bar because I just needed to get out of this house. I haven't been sleeping ever since Monday night, especially after the banging happened. I wait till the daytime to sleep usually, which sucks because that's my time to work while the kids are at school, but I spend the whole time sleeping. As you can see here, I'm exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. I don't know what to think. So I went out last night to see one of my friends, and then our other friend happened to be there, and she's also very sensitive, just like me and my son. And basically she she told me that her grandson's sensitive as well, and we're having the conversation, and then all of a sudden it's 10 o'clock at night and her grandson calls her, and I think he's like 11 or 12 or something, pretty young, definitely not a teenager yet, and he's not supposed to be awake at 10. And he goes, Nana, what's going on? There's three people in my room. And she goes, what do you mean? He goes, there's 3 people standing in my doorway. And she told him to get up and get out of bed and go out of his room. And he goes, I can't get out of bed. And so finally his mother hears him talking, and she goes, Jack, who the hell are you talking to? It's 10 o'clock at night. And his mom comes in, and he's like, okay, Nana, I'm all right. She scared him away or whatever. So we finish our conversation. And I'm just like, well, that's fucking weird considering the conversation we're having right now. And we finish our conversation, and I go to talk to my other friend, and she comes up to me crying. She goes, you need to go. And I go, why? And she goes, Jack just called me, which was her grandson, and he said, Nana, what's Bella and Russell's mom's name? And she goes, Jess. Mind you, he's only met my kids one time, and it was a while ago. Like, there's no reason he should know me or really know my kids at all, especially. And he goes, yeah, you need to tell her to go home because they're trying to get into Bella's window. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So he's saying the 3 beings that were in his room left and said they were going to get into Bella's window. And that's exactly where both my kids were when I got home, was in Bella's room, because that's where they've been sleeping. So I get home, I call AJ, I hurry up and I go home, and I had sage that I had bought to sage and cleanse the house, and I go around cleansing, and I have like 5 fire alarm detectors and smoke alarm detectors in my house. And I literally went past all of them, like right up in there. And I checked all the batteries. All of them are working. But the only one that went off was in Bella's room, where these things were supposedly trying to get into. And I talked to Russell about things. I don't want to have him play into it, but at the same time, I don't want to disregard it either. And I want him to feel like he can talk about it and that I'll actually listen to him. And he told me that I had him sitting on my lap, and I was looking at pictures of my dad's Facebook on the computer, and he was sitting there looking at him too, and he's like, that's Mimi, that's Papa, you know, my dad, my mom, that's me, that's Bella. And then all of a sudden I come across this one picture, and he goes, hey, I see that lady in my room sometimes and in my living room, and she told me to put the crosses out so that that would keep the monsters away. I was like, okay. Because the woman in the picture happened to be my grandmother that died when I was 11, and she was Catholic. So I'm kind of at a loss. I'm trying to do everything I can. It makes a lot of sense as far as why Russell's behaviors are the way they are, why he doesn't sleep, why he's always, you know, distracted, because he can have a lot of people coming at him at once, and he doesn't know how to tell them to go away. It can make sense as to why the slightest of sounds can set him off, because he's overwhelmed by all the talking that he's hearing. Because I asked him what it was like when he, you know, had someone visiting him, and he goes like this, and he goes, Mommy, they're all in my head, and they hurt my head, and I hear them in my head, and they tell me to open my eyes. So then, by the way, if our banging wasn't scary enough, I talked to my grandma the next day, and she goes, what time was it at? And I go, 3:03 in the morning. And she's like, yeah, I had banging last night in my bedroom at the same time, and your grandpa even heard it. So the same night, the same time, she had banging 4 hours away from us in her bedroom with no explanation. And then I told my mom, and she told me that on Monday night into Tuesday morning, my mom and dad were awoken by banging at the door that they didn't get up to check or answer. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we're dealing with. I don't know where we're going to end up. But I feel like I'm dealing with some spiritual warfare. And I am not a religious person, but I am debating whether or not I should be at this point.